I've been on the other side of job search for 20 years, hiring over 1,000 people and reviewing over 10,000 applications. As the Chief Growth Officer at WeWork and now the founder of Teal, I've noticed the most common advice is just plain wrong. So here are some of the biggest mistakes I see people make and my 20 years of proven advice to get hired faster. My first piece of advice is you need to know what hiring managers, recruiters, and executives really care about. Hiring managers, they want to know, can you actually do this job? Have you solved this exact problem before? Recruiters want to know, can I confidently move this person forward and quickly without it looking bad for me? And for the executive, does this person's work ladder up to our business priorities? Are they going to help the business move forward? I was on a hiring panel once and I saw this in action. I saw where the recruiter, the hiring manager, and the exec were all evaluating the same person and each cared about totally different things. Understanding all of these perspectives are going to help you shape how you present yourself. My second piece of advice is making sure what you're presenting in your resume and your cover letter fits with what the hiring manager wants to see. Most job seekers think that they're fighting a fair fight, but you're up against an intricate corporate system. I've seen it from the inside, the internal process, how the job description gets written and budgeted and how it gets posted and how candidates are screened. It's all a sequence of gates. Here's how recruiters actually read your resume. First, they skim it. Is the person real? Are they remotely qualified? Do they have the right job title? Is this even a person? They're really just making sure they have the core capabilities. They're even just lightly qualified. I've seen executive assistants apply for accountant positions, and that's the kind of stuff they're looking for. Then they scan for keywords. Quick pattern match against the job description. For example, software engineer, they're gonna be looking for React, JavaScript, Python. If it's a marketer, they're gonna be looking for social media platforms. They're just looking for keywords that show you are within the range of the profession. And then if they like what they see, they study the resume. This is where they read the whole thing. They might take a minute or two and go through the entirety of the resume. They read each bullet, they look at your credentials. They'll even go to your LinkedIn sometimes. This is where they do a much deeper dive into your career. Whatever everyone looks for in a resume can be a little bit different, but some people are gonna be looking directly for credentials, some people are gonna be looking for relationships, and some may bias it on degrees, universities. They all wanna check where you worked. They wanna see where you've been. Those are great proxies for your capabilities. They have some sense of how hard it is to get into a company like Google, and if you work there, well, that's gonna lend some credibility to your career. Ultimately, they're looking for shortcuts and proxies to make good decisions faster. Then they're looking at similar experiences, someone who has literally done the job before. They'll look for like the same domain or the same company size. For example, if you worked at Lyft, they're gonna really want you at Uber. They wanna know that you've done the job before. If you've done it before, this really minimizes their risk in hiring. Now, that doesn't mean if you haven't done the job before, you're not gonna get it. I've got some tips on that later in the video. Here's some common mistakes that might get your resume rejected. How you fill out the application form when you first apply online. Take those serious. The quality of your resume, how fast you applied, and the references you have coming into the company. A lot of companies actually have referral programs. You want to leverage those if you can. Avoid having overly graphical or stylized resumes. Focus more on the content and not the packaging. Oftentimes, people don't curate enough. The resume is verbose and long and not clear. You don't have concise bullets, include too much information, and try to fit everything onto one page. That's not what it's about. It's about making it clear, concise, and easy to read. Resumes have to be legible, with a good font and clarity. And if you're using AI, make sure not to lose your personality and that the resume doesn't all look the same. That is one of the big gripes with AI right now, is that all the resumes are getting generic and looking the same. Make sure you don't lose showing who you are and some of your personality in your resume. Now, what about cover letters? What do they want to see on those? You want to make sure you're not just repeating what you have on the resume. That's not the point. Cover letters were invented to be literally just that. They were a piece of paper that came on top of the resume when you mailed it in. They work as an introduction and your pitch. Here's where you really want to differentiate yourself and address the job description, showing that you're interested and highly qualified for the position. If there's any gaps, this is where you want to bridge those gaps. Your cover letter is a great tool for that. If you're not going to put the effort into the cover letter, honestly, you're better off not writing one. I'm working on a video with real reasons why your resume and applications get rejected. So make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Here's my third one. Evolve your job search to the times. What's not working now is just submitting an online application and just waiting to hear back. You need to put in a little more effort than that. Online hiring has changed a ton, and job boards have made it so easy to post jobs, which has created even more volume for applicants on the company side. And that's where systems like ATSs, or the applicant tracking system, have come to be. They're really for managing the volume of applicants that all these digital systems have enabled. The ATS isn't evil. They're just built to handle application volume. The challenge is now hiring has become super complex and inconsistent. It's created a super crazy ecosystem, and every company does it different. We've got ATSs that are pretty complex and sophisticated like Workday, and then we've got ones that are way simpler and a much better candidate experience like Greenhouse, Lever, and Ashby. But there's well over 200 ATSs that HR departments use. The ATS hasn't really hurt candidates. It allows companies to process volume, but the burden is put on the job seeker. If you don't present as a qualified candidate, you're probably gonna get filtered out immediately because you're just presenting something that's generic and doesn't stand out. An ATS is really like a digital filing cabinet and workflow management tool. Let me walk you through our ATS that we use here at Teal. We use a product called Ashby, which is great. This was for an AI product engineer position that we ended up not filling. I closed it a few weeks ago, and you see that I've blurred out the personal information. Here, first, you can see that these are candidates I've reached out to. Ashby, in this case, calls them leads, and you've got all these cards of people that I've reached out to, not reached out to, and I can manage that process. Then here, under application review, these are folks that have applied online. And you can see they just come in as a list of all the applications. It shows the information of all the questions they answered, and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. Then I can click into an applicant. And what you can see here is all my workflow. Again, I've blurred out all the personal information so you guys can't see that, but I can see the activity, I can see a summary, and then I can see the resume. And here it's just a PDF preview of the resume. Again, I've blurred it. Doesn't typically look like that. It's giving me templates for how I can email the person, I can change the stage and work through. And then here I can very quickly just cycle through resumes. And so when they talk about 4 to 5 seconds, this is it. I just have to hit this arrow and boom, it gives me a preview of the resume. I just keep hitting this arrow and then I can archive it or I can change the stage. And it's as simple as that. That's what then fires off an email to the person. They reply, it allows them to book a calendar time, and it's just workflow management. You can see that there are some tools for like AI filter assistant, but all that's gonna do is just create filters for me that look for the words. It's not doing any kind of fancy ranking or anything like that. And that's it. That's the basics of an ATS. They might all have slightly different interfaces and slightly different features, but at its core, that's what they do. They manage applications, inbound, outbound, and they help you manage the workflow from the day you post the job to the day you hire the person. There's a lot of discourse and advice online about the ATS, some good, some bad, and there's so much I need to share about how to work with the ATS from a hiring manager's perspective. It's coming very soon. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to watch it. Here's my fourth tip. Focus on what actually works in the job search. Quality beats quantity every time. Don't spray and pray with 100 applications a day. Those are just gonna be ignored because they're generic. They don't call out to the company in any way. You wanna tailor each application, network intentionally, and align your story to the job. If you're objectively not qualified for a role, the truth is you probably shouldn't apply. You can use that time to better tailor applications to the jobs you're qualified for. You can't compete with a person who's 100% qualified for the job. Now, if you do think you're qualified in a different kind of way, you need to build the bridges. The companies aren't gonna do that for you. You need to shape your story to make it relevant. Here's an example. There was a time at Teal when we posted for a back-end software engineer. And the back end of Teal is written in a programming language called Ruby on Rails. We got over 1,000 applicants, and I'm sure plenty of them did know Ruby, but the truth is, it just wasn't on their resume. To save my time and our CTO's time, I just looked through all the resumes with a simple filter. Any of the ones that had the word Ruby or Ruby on Rails or even variations of it. I actually even got some people that worked at Ruby Tuesday a couple times. I really wanted to catch everybody that put Ruby on there. But if they didn't, I wasn't gonna waste my time. And ultimately, I didn't have the time to call everyone and ask, hey, by the way, do you know Ruby? So what I had to do was just mass decline 50% of the candidates because we already had so many people that had applied and I was sure the person was in there. You can't expect a company to assume you have the abilities because you applied. You need to do the work, and you're competing in a market where other people are. So when it comes to tailoring your resume, it doesn't need to be something crazy. You just gotta make sure you're hitting on the most important things that the company cares about. Here's my 5th tip. Understand the role of AI in hiring and job search. AI will replace jobs that are just toil and pure labor and don't require much thought. Let's call them the paper pushing roles. But people are still needed because we are creative and we can weave things together. AI can only really do things that have been done before. For now, people are still needed for creativity, context, and problem solving. In job search, AI makes it easier to create generic content, but that's the danger. To stand out, you need to learn how to prompt well. The truth is, garbage in, garbage out. Add your unique insight or opinion. Don't just rely on what the AI makes for you. Don't just make stuff up based on the job title. And definitely don't use the AI output as is. Review it, proofread it, give it some personality. There are right ways and there are wrong ways to use AI in your job search, and I see bad examples of this all the time. And sometimes people don't even change their prompt. They leave it right in there in the content. It's pretty sad. Don't do this. We'll share details on this in an upcoming video about how to write resumes with AI. All right, here's my 6th piece of advice. Have the right mindset when job searching. If you really need a job, treat your job search like a job. Set schedules, set priorities, give yourself task lists, set a cadence, and set goals. What gets measured gets managed, and it's key that you put the infrastructure in place for yourself. Now, if you're passively searching, set a goal and think about what indicators of making progress look like to you. Align it to what you want. If you're really waiting for the right position, then maybe it's an application a week, but don't stop looking. You need to be aware of what's going on in the market so you don't miss an opportunity. If you want to put this advice into action and start aligning your value with opportunity, check out the free tools at Teal, and the link is in the description below. It's super important that you get clear on what you want and why you're making the change. I see a lot of people kind of flailing and just thinking about what they're going to do, but ultimately they're not really moving any closer to getting that job they want. And more often than not, it's because they're not sure what they're looking for. Another awesome thing you can do for your job search is try to get jobs coming to you. And the way you do that is by networking and letting your network know, updating your LinkedIn, and developing an inbound strategy. That's a marketing term that I think really applies to the job search, is having jobs come to you instead of you constantly doing outbound and applying and trying to reach out to people. And of course, keep a cadence. A drop in momentum can honestly derail your entire job search. It's okay to take breaks, but try and keep a cadence. And lastly, don't take rejection personally. There are a lot of people applying to a lot of the jobs out there with different skill sets and all sorts of different abilities. What companies want is usually pretty unique. If you made it into an interview round, then it wasn't about you. You were absolutely qualified. There was just something that they might have liked about someone else a little bit better. There are hundreds of people applying to positions, and you have internal networks, internal referrals, networking, internal hires. There's just a lot of things that go into it. So don't get discouraged. Just keep going. Here's my 7th piece of advice. Use the standout formula to get noticed. The most effective way to get noticed by recruiters is to build a personal brand and add value. In a perfect world, you have jobs coming to you. One way you can do that is to be a thought leader. Post informative content that shows your subject matter expert and add value. Be a value adding contributor to the community. Don't just post lazy AI slop, and definitely don't whine or complain online. There are anonymous, safe spaces on the internet to do that if you're really looking for an outlet to kind of complain about a past employer or the current job search, but nobody wants to hire a chronic complainer, so don't do it on LinkedIn. Next, be relational, not transactional. What I like to say is give to get. When that applies to your networking, offer up advice, share articles, come bearing gifts. And when it comes to the online presence, share tips, share techniques, share processes, show things that prove your capabilities and that you're collaborative. Here's my 8th piece of advice. Leverage LinkedIn to stand out. LinkedIn is a huge career asset, and it's got well over 1 billion professionals globally on it. You want to use it to your advantage. So the first thing I would do is make sure my headline really stands out. It's super important. Don't just put seeking new opportunities. Really leverage your headline. It's one of the first things you see in LinkedIn Recruiter when you're searching for candidates. This one might be a little bit controversial, but it seems obvious to me, is have a professional headshot that shows you're a real person. Think of this as stacking micro signals that you're being serious about your career and your job search. Next is your professional summary. The first 3 lines on LinkedIn are the most important. That's when you have to click see more to use the rest. Now, you can fill it with keywords and make it really rich, but know that only the first 3 lines are what are going to be seen. Another section that I think is super underrated is the skills section. On LinkedIn Recruiter, you can search by specific skills and it uses that skills section. So load that up with every skill and ability that you have and cast a super wide net. That way, if anyone searches for something that they might be related to, they show up. But then when they land on your LinkedIn profile, it's gonna be super generic and it's not gonna look like you're great at any one thing. Have a position on who you are and how you wanna present yourself to your network and to recruiters. Recruiters wanna see concentration and density. They wanna see that 9 out of 10 things that you talk about are highly relevant to the role and company. So the more that you can bridge those gaps, the better. Be deliberate about how you present who you are and what you're good at. That concentration is what's going to make you stand out. And here's a super underrated hack. A lot of people think you need to originate content and be writing all the time. You really don't. Just commenting on other people's posts can go a super long way. I've had some comments that have gotten over 10,000 impressions, and it was just a comment on someone else's post. So look for some people that are thought leaders in your industry and comment and engage on their content. Here's my 9th tip. Network in the digital and physical world. Start with first-degree connections that maybe you haven't talked to in a bit. They may have that job that you're aiming for next, or they may work at a company where you want to work, and they can provide that information to you, and it's a good reason to reconnect. You may have things in common because you both have worked in the same place before. So reach out and try to have a coffee chat or an informational interview. Those can be digital or physical. Next would be to leverage your extended network. These are second-degree connections or people that you admire and look up to from afar. Don't just cold DM people and ask to pick their brain. Please don't do that. People don't like it. It doesn't feel very two-sided, and it feels very much like a, I just need, give me. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be direct. You can be upfront about the fact that you'd love to work at the company that they're at, and that you'd like to learn about it, what it's like to be there, and be forward that you're not looking for a referral or an intro. You're really just looking to learn, but you are interested in that company and you can give your reason why. Next is to ask for advice. Most people are comfortable giving advice, especially if they know there's no strings attached or an expectation of a referral or looking for something in return. You can also engage with people on something you have in common or content that they posted online. If there's someone you follow who's a thought leader in your space, engage on their content. Send them a link to something they care about that they might find insightful. I recently did this. There's a bunch of SEO pros on Twitter that I think are really compelling. I found an article, I shared it, and I tagged them. Now in the future, I might have something in common when I reach out to them. When it comes to networking and your relationships, you have to remember that they belong to you. You build them at companies and you build them through situations, but those transcend all of that, and those relationships are yours. So you need to nurture and maintain them and think of them as career assets. Not in a transactional way, but these are relationships that you've built and that you can leverage and that they can leverage. So it really is a win-win. And last, IRL or in real life events are making a comeback. There are so many great conferences that are happening. Companies are starting to invest in events again, so try to leverage them and go to them. There's local meetups, there's workshops, there's all sorts of cool cohort-based learning, so look for ways that you can engage with people through these various professional organizations. And don't be scared to get on a plane and go to a big industry event. Those relationships you build could last your entire career. So many of the good friends I have now, I've met at events that I went to 10, 15 years ago, and we keep in touch online, and whenever we go to events, we make sure to reconnect. Networking can be scary, but I'm posting a whole video deep diving into networking, so stay tuned for that. Here's my 10th piece of advice. Look for jobs in the right places and track them. Here's some of the best places to find jobs. A major underrated job board is Google Jobs. They aggregate listings from all the sites, so it's a really great way to look for jobs. Now, that said, they are aggregated and they don't oftentimes bring in directly from career boards, but it really is a great place to find opportunities. Next is to go directly to career sites. That's like Airbnb or Google's company career pages. That's the source. As soon as they're posted, they will be there. All the other job boards need to wait for those to cascade out. So I really encourage you to take a look at those. The tricky thing can be is that you have to go to company by company. Of course, there's also the standards like LinkedIn, Indeed, Built-in, and Glassdoor. You should definitely check those out. All the job boards have different jobs. Maybe there's like a 60-70% overlap, but each has unique opportunities that aren't on the others. We've also got a pretty awesome new AI job search at Teal with a conversational interface, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And the last thing you want to do is set up alerts. This way you don't have to keep going to every single job board every day, and the jobs can come to you. They can be a huge asset. They can be a little bit noisy because sometimes the quality is not great, but you should definitely set them up anyway. Another place to look is niche job boards. There are a ton of them. All sorts of communities create little job boards to post industry-specific jobs. They still work and they can be a great resource for opportunities. Find the ones that are aligned with your industry and your occupation. And then once you find the jobs, you need to manage them. The easiest way to manage job search process and reduce stress is to use an all-in-one platform to manage this process like Teal. It'll help you find jobs, write your ATS-friendly resume with important keywords tailored to each specific job post. It'll help you with cover letters, job tracking, and very soon it'll have a ChatGPT-like interface to help you find the jobs. But again, more on that later. Here's my 11th piece of advice. Here's how to improve your chances of landing the job. The tricky thing about the hiring process is that companies want to hire you for what you did and not what you want to do. And so many of us look to make a leap because we want to advance and do something we haven't done before. But that's okay. We can account for that. If you're looking to get a promotion via your job search, here's some tips and things you want to account for. Find moments in your career that match what the job is looking for, even if you didn't have the job title. As an example, if you managed people, but manager isn't in your job title, you should definitely add it in. It's okay, you're not lying, you're just mapping it to more normative industry job titles than the one that company chose to give you. You can also use courses and get credentials, but honestly, real projects and having real life examples are gonna have a much bigger impact. So do some volunteering or do some of your own projects as side hustles and show those as examples with your skills. Essentially build a portfolio of your work, be it a personal website or through the things you share on LinkedIn. This is where having a master resume really can go a super long way. You can adjust and shape your narrative depending on the job you're applying to. If you're looking to make a leap in your career, you're going to have to probably use a little bit more expressive language and prove some of the things out that maybe aren't obvious directly through your job titles. So this is where you can use language and your bullets to really build the narrative of how you can do what they want you to do, even though you necessarily haven't done it before. You can manage your master resume in a really long Google Doc or use Teal's Resume Builder, which is built on the idea of a master resume where you can log everything you've ever done over the entirety of your career. Here's my 12th tip. What would you do if you had to start your job search from scratch? I know that can be a little overwhelming, but it's an important way to think about how to shape your job search. What you should start with is market research. You want to understand what companies are looking for and not just what you want to do. You can start by looking at job descriptions for the jobs you're interested. Then once you have ones that you think align with what you're looking for, go to the requirements section to make sure that you have the credentials. These are what companies are saying you have to have. And then start studying the responsibilities section so you can understand what they're looking for. Requirements are what you've done, responsibilities are what you're gonna do. And the more you can prove that you've done that before, the better. Now use that information to build a master resume with the following information. Anything the job description asks for that you're capable of doing, make sure you have matching content, be that bullets or skills in your skills section or in your professional summary. You want to use the job descriptions as almost a questionnaire of what you've done before. Also look to see if there's any alternative titles that map to the market and what you're looking for. Maybe a UX designer is also a product designer. So understand the landscape of job titles that you are capable of doing. And list out any credentials, certifications, or any kind of appendix material that would help you build the case for why they should hire you. I like to call this all the career facts. Make sure they're in your master resume. Next is to set a goal. Have a cadence. Momentum and cadence are everything in a job search. Set a goal of maybe like 5 applications a week, maybe 10. Think about what's manageable for you and what you can do on a regular basis. Set goals on things that you can control, not things like interviews and offers, because honestly, those are a little bit out of your hands and it could be disheartening if you're not making progress on those. Then start to measure your progress on that cadence. How many callbacks are you getting? If you're doing 10 a week, you want to really be getting about 1 interview out of each of those batches. If you're not, look at your process, look at your materials, and think about what you can change. And I said this before, but I'll say it again, set up job alerts. Early bird catches the worm. If you can be one of the first people to apply, your chances of getting an interview are so much higher. Tip 13. Here's my advice for someone who's been on the job search for months and not having the best luck. Consider changing things up. If you've been doing the same thing over and over again and you're not seeing any results, set up some experimentation processes. Do applications for a week. If you get nothing, make a tweak, apply again. Make a tweak, apply again. Whether it's applying faster, whether it's networking, trying different techniques and variables on your resume, and that way you learn the process. Limit the variables to 1 per batch. So if you're gonna try a different format, do it for just a week and then try a different format the following week. And try new things every week. This way you're testing and learning, and you can use your job search as a bit of a way to kind of build skills and try out experimentation. The market's a bit wacky. You don't know what will work. After 20 years of hiring, it all comes down to this. Be intentional, be specific, and be authentic. Focus on quality. Understand how the system works and use it to your advantage. And yes, you can find a job you're passionate about and still earn a stable income, but you should really actually pursue purpose. Purpose gives long-term motivation and aligns with meaningful work. Passion is great for hobbies, but purpose can sustain a career. That's what we've got. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more job search strategy videos every week. This channel is here to simplify your job search and help you get hired. It is what I jump out of bed to do. I appreciate you watching. Now go crush that job search. You've got this.